Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about what preoccupied attachment men need to watch out for when going down the rabbit hole of various internet advice. So before I get to that, which is a big topic because, as I will discuss, most of the guys listening to this are preoccupied attachment. Hint, if your wife did not force you to listen to this, you're preoccupied attachment. There's possibly some disorganized in here as well, definitely, but not avoidant. So if maybe some secure that are just kind of really think I'm hilarious, but the majority of people who are trying to get stuff out of internet advice are preoccupied attachment. I'll discuss more of that, but before I do, please do subscribe. Most recent subscriber episode was on when working partners grow apart from stay-at-home partners, and I see this a lot. Guys I work with and their wives, and sometimes women that work and stay-at-home dads, husbands. So anyway, that and 126 or something more episodes for $8.99 a month, which is pretty good because you get so many episodes. I mean, and they're all at least like 15 minutes, you know, some are 20. It's like a lot of hours in the car, doing chores, whatever you do. Okay, so the majority of people who look up advice on their relationships are preoccupied attachment. They are overly focused on their relationships. You can go back to my original attachment style podcast. Just search attachment in the Spotify app search engine for this podcast. Or I have ones on preoccupied attachment husband. You should listen to that. But preoccupied attachment guys are the ones who tend to follow advice on the internet, and not all of it is good, you know? I mean, not all of it is very even-handed. A lot of it is like, poor me, I'm the victim. And so a lot of it says that like women cheat at these super high rates, and they're always looking to trade up, and they're always like into the next hottest guy. I mean, this shit has no basis in like any reality that most people see. You know, I have a post coming out. It'll probably be out by the time you guys hear this, but who knows, on women don't usually cheat is what it's called. And certainly rates of women cheating are half those of men, pretty much. So, I mean, people don't usually cheat. 80% of men don't, and 90% of women don't. So if you have experienced a woman cheating, it's likely that she's a very dramatic personality in the cluster B personality disorder group, you know, or traits therein, which include narcissistic and borderline. But what have I taught you? Are you a perfect person if you've gotten involved with a woman with borderline? Certainly not. You either tend toward being narcissistic or enabling, you know, and being codependent. So what you have is like the most dramatic guys talking about how their, you know, bitch ex-wives cheated on them with like 40 men. And that's like just not anything near normal, you know? I mean, if you went onto like a forum for spouses of addicts, you know, and just searched by, you know, men talking about addict wives, you would think that most women were addicts, but they're not, you know, or that most women were borderline. It's the same equivalent, which, guys, this will resonate more with you, as the women who talk about their ex-husbands being narcissists, you know? Everybody isn't a narcissist. Right? And so the women that are involved in those relationships are more dramatic, and they are the ones who are going to write all about them on the internet. It's what my friend Dad Starting Over calls the vocal minority. But the reason is because people in these dramatic relationships are drawn to each other, and then afterwards they're still dramatic. So they're still, you know, talking about the relationship on the internet. But when guys who are preoccupied attachment, which is, you know, they're anxious about their relationship already. They have low self-esteem. They have low self-worth. They always think their spouse is too good for them. I did a podcast of guys who think that everybody thinks their wife is hotter than they are. You know, these guys are particularly susceptible to this kind of stuff, you know, and to listening and to thinking that their wife's actually cheating on them. I did this whole podcast with the sex as a freeze tag analogy. It's as ridiculous. You thinking your low libido wife is cheating on you is in at least 90% of cases, you know, if not more, as ridiculous based on the age, I'm saying, you know, because in midlife, women cheat at very low rates. Their hormones go down. And, they don't want to sleep with anybody, including the guy. But it's as silly as if your child said, and I did a whole podcast on this, so I don't have to belabor the point, but if your child said, oh, you don't want to play freeze tag with me, you must be playing freeze tag during the day with another kid while you're at work. You'd be like, no, I just don't care about freeze tag. Remember, I'm a grown-up, like you be lucky I'm playing with you when I do, and that's kind of how your wife feels and how the situation is for the majority of men. The wife's not cheating on them. She just has a lower libido, in monogamy, and his preoccupied attachment behavior is turning her off even more. Like she could, if she felt that she was in a loving marriage, possibly have more sex or connection or intimacy. But if the guy is always like reading internet advice and coming to her with like 25 things that we need to talk about and going through her email and shit, well, then of course she's not going to want to have sex with him. He seems crazy to her, and these women are going to be more avoidant generally. And it's even more of a turnoff to them when the guy is like just complaining and insecure and whining. And I have a podcast. Nobody likes a whiner, because it's true. So a lot of guys say that women don't like emotional men, but this is because the only emotion they've ever shown is like anger and fear, and it's about the relationship, like they don't express joy or gratitude or appreciation or happiness much. It's really just kind of this negative, like, are you cheating on me? Why don't you love me? How can I make you more attracted to me? Sort of hysteria. And of course, that's going to turn off anybody of any gender. So and the other reason that men with preoccupied attachment are very susceptible to thinking the worst and to going down these rabbit holes of internet advice is they usually get super preoccupied with the relationship, so then they don't have a lot of friends, So this is why, like, again, my friend Dad starting over has his fraternity of men, to be friends with, and you can do that. You can DIY this by like making a friend, like at the gym or something, like somebody who like does the same sort of thing you do seems to work for men a lot, like sports. Play tennis with somebody, play golf with somebody, preoccupied attachment guys, when they're on the internet, they only encounter each other. So then they assume everybody's preoccupied attachment and everybody's obsessed with their relationship and their sex life. But that's not true. Most guys are avoidant. If they had to pick one insecure attachment, like the majority of people are secure, but after that, most guys are avoidant, and the minority is preoccupied and the very minority is disorganized. And I have a podcast on fearful avoidant that's disorganized. That's after an abusive childhood. But so if you hang out with some other guys, or if you even just like talk on a deeper level to some of your coworkers or something, or reconnect with old friends, or go into different internet forums, just like the regular ones, like ones on other interests you have or something. But again, people who are on internet forums, and I say this knowing that I run an internet forum, right? But like people who are on internet forums are not your average person. They're not in any way. First of all, they're like way more verbal. So they like to talk a lot more. And then the ones who are in relationship forums are talking a lot about relationships. This makes Joe average preoccupied man think that like all guys are talking about their relationship all the time, and they're not. And that's not something to do. That's not something that's helpful. So here's the thing. So you need to have other guy friends. So I said I would help you with this. What to do instead of be on the internet researching why your wife is cheating on you when she's not. And you have, certainly, yeah, sometimes that happens. It's really rare, So, it would be like, it would be like every time I say I'm going to basically use a high libido male and a low libido woman as my exemplar situation in marriages with libido disparity, because that's the majority. So I try to talk about the majority. The majority of cases, that helps the majority of people. She's not cheating on you. She's not thinking about cheating on you. She just doesn't care. Like she wants you to leave her the fuck alone. Yeah, sure. There's a million problems with preoccupied attachment that could be helped, with individual therapy, with couples therapy, and she's got to work on her own stuff too, certainly. But it's usually not that she is trying to trade up to a richer guy or something that like the internet is telling you. So anyway, so what could you do? Therapy, I just said that. Make friends is like a big one. Get more invested in your career is super big. If you're thinking about like building your career, then you're not thinking about whether she's cheating on you all the time. You're not thinking about your relationship all the time. How about parenting? Throw yourself really into parenting your kids. Make yourself the dad that you always wanted to be. Don't tell yourself that you're able to do that while you're obsessing about your wife, because you're not. Anybody who's obsessive or addictive is not being the best parent that they could be, because too much is occupying their mind. If you're obsessed with having sex with your wife exactly, 2 to 3 times a week because that's what you made her agree upon in couples counseling, then, and you're like keeping your fucking spreadsheet, then you're not really probably being that good of a dad, because we can't really do all things, So yeah, that. I mean, if you want to go on internet forums, only go on ones with both genders. Or sometimes I've had a couple guys go on Reddit forums for women. They lurk. They don't pretend to be women. That would be crazy. But they actually look at what women talk about. And it's like a big version of reading my post. Here's 9 things that your wife thinks about all day. Like, I've had multiple clients who are like, either they saw something on their wife's computer that she goes on internet forums for women, or they just found them by researching, Googling around. And they look and they see a whole bunch of women talking to each other, and barely any of them are doing anything that they think their wife is doing or thinking. So that could be useful. My Facebook group, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my own Facebook group. It's on the internet, but it has men and women, and it's all people that like my stuff. I fancy myself, and I hope that that is not without merit, as even-handed, talking about both sides. So that can be very useful to have both sides. So there have been people in my Facebook group that have said, I didn't really understand what women/men thought till I talked to the people in this group. It's also not a vibe where people are hitting on each other. So you don't have to worry about that, although I still nurse a secret hope that there will be a love connection, or at least a best friend connection somewhere in my group. But people will say something like, my wife rejected me for sex. I feel so bad. And a bunch of women will be like, well, what about this? What about that? How about maybe she was thinking this or that? Or from the interaction you described, that doesn't sound as bad as what you are taking it as, or something like that. It could be really useful, because most guys don't have platonic female friends, nor should they, especially if they're in a sexless marriage. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. So, so that can be very good. If you do get a therapist, frequently men find it beneficial to speak to a female therapist because they're trying to understand their wife. They're trying to understand that women are people, that women, especially if they're trying to get back out of too much red pill stuff that they've been swallowing, it's useful to talk to a woman who you respect and who you think isn't some sort of a hypergamous bitch, I mean, so yeah, so that can be useful, but really having other focuses. And when you are interacting on the topic of relationships, do it in an objective manner with people who are going to be objective with you. So having a large friend group of men, or even a male friend, as long as he's not identical to yourself and also obsessed with that his wife may not love him enough, then good. He can provide some sort of a sounding board. If there is a therapist that you trust, a coach that you trust, literally only looking at what women talk about on the internet themselves can be useful. Things like my Facebook group can be useful. Things like male coaching have been useful to other people, like what DSO offers. DSO's Dad Starting Over. If you're new to this blog or this podcast or whatever, he was my only podcast guest. But yeah, so he's a nice guy. And it's really interesting because the difference between his main page, his outward facing Facebook page that has 100,000 people following it, that place is really, really this flavor of what I'm talking about. Super preoccupied attachment guys obsessing about how bad women are. But then, when you get into the group itself, because I've done, talks and stuff for them, it's more objective people who are really trying to understand their relationships and how to be better. So, it's very different. And, Reddit and stuff, that's, all just anonymous. At least Facebook, it has your name attached to it. But, if it's, a screen name and it's anonymized, people are really their worst selves. They're just vomiting out any nasty misogynistic shit. And for the women boards, it's misandry, anti-male stuff too. So there's obviously loads and loads of places on the internet where men are reviled. And I try to be just as disapproving of those as I am about the converse. So anyway, just to recap, your preoccupied attachment guy, get into different spaces, head spaces, physical spaces, friendship spaces, where your belief system is not just in an echo chamber, making you more and more ramped up and likelier to accuse your wife of shit that she's not doing in a way that isn't going to make your relationship better, but instead is going to make your relationship terrible. That's really the TLDR, to use a Reddit term, ironically. All right, I hope that this was useful for some of you. Please do subscribe. And it's interesting, like I was saying about DSO's Facebook page, just make sure that you guys, just to clarify, that's my Facebook page too. Like, there's so much of a difference between my outward Facebook page, where people just say whatever bullshit, and then like the group, where people are nice to each other. Like, people will do that if you pay. I don't know how much he charges, probably like similar to me. It's like $4.99 to get into the group, and he offers other shit. So who knows what that is? But if you pay literally $1 to do something, you're going to be less of a prick, when you're in there, and you're going to be more careful and conscientious because you're actually committing to getting something and to receiving feedback. On the internet, there's a lot of feedback givers and not a lot of feedback receivers, and when you're somebody who's struggling with feeling vulnerable, it can be really, really tough to not get caught up in groupthink, and then like think that your wife is really out to get you in some way, and it's like they're all women and just crazy shit that's like not real. That hopefully you've done enough listening to my podcast to see that your wife is just a person with her own struggles. And that sounds kind of cliche, but it's literally the exact feedback that people tell me that they get, the viewpoint shift that they get from listening to my stuff. Oh my God, my wife is literally just a person. She's just like me. She has different needs, but she's not trying to get one over on me. She didn't have any bait and switch, master plan. This isn't fucking Pinky and the Brain or whatever. Like, it's just two people that are trying and failing to understand each other, and possibly with therapy, individual. And that's the thing for preoccupied attachment guys. Often individual therapy, by the way, is better. You need to do that shit before you go to couples therapy, because you really need to work on yourself and understand how you are making the situation frequently quite worse. And when your wife sees you calm the fuck down a little bit about stuff, then she may be interested in couples, because she has already then seen the benefits of therapy in you. All right. No more PSs. This will end now. All right. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.